Welcome back to the Twinspires Racing Roundtable. I'm Ashley Anderson here with James Scully and Vance Hanson to look back on a big weekend at Saratoga, specifically some Breeders' Cup implications with Thorpedo Anna, the reigning horse of the year, and how she might fare in the Breeders' Cup Distaff, not the Classic. I think it's been decided it's the Distaff. We'll also talk about Hope Road, who won the Ballerina, and how she might stack up against Sweet Azteca, who won this past weekend in the Breeders' Cup Filly Mare Sprint. And then what else caught our eye from the weekend? Try to keep it short so that James can get back to looking at social media and all the tweets about Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift. They are now engaged. He's a big Swiftie. Now I know he's gonna be mad at me for saying that. All right, well, let's go to the reigning horse of the year, Thorpedo Anna. And she got that win in the Breeders' Cup Distaff, but barely. And now she is looking, or not the Breeders' Cup Distaff, I'm sorry, in the personal ensign, now pointed toward the Breeders' Cup Distaff. And obviously a little bit less dominant this season. So the big question is, will she close out the year with another win in the Breeders' Cup Distaff? And I will start with Vance. What is your take on her chances in the Breeders' Cup Distaff?
I still think they're pretty good. As you said, it doesn't look like she's advanced too much from ages 3 to 4. I mean, she's had uh, encountered a big loss in the La Troyenne earlier this season. Some of her wins have been more workmanlike. This past weekend in the personal incident was a really tough race for her. Although trainer Kenny McPeak said she did miss a little bit of training time in advance of it, so we probably didn't see her at her very best here. But she did hold on for the win. And history kind of works in our favor here. I did look back at the history of the Breeders' Cup Distaff, and we've had three three-year-old filly champions who won the Breeders' Cup Distaff also won it as older horses. Those were Royal Delta, Beholder, and Monomoy Girl. And the only one who won the Distaff at three but didn't win it as an older filly and mare was a Shadow back in 2005. So there's probably some parallels with a Shadow and Thorpedo Anna. A Shadow, if people remember her 4-year-old campaign, they could kind of tell that she had lost a step from her 3-year-old season. So it's quite possible that Thorpedo Anna will be a vulnerable favorite in the Distaff at Del Mar. I do think she's capable of running better than she did at Saratoga this past weekend, and she will have a formidable rival, I think, in the 3-year-old Nitrogen, who I think is the best 3-year-old filly going at the moment. But I still give Thorpedo Anna a pretty good shot at repeating.
James taking the counterpoint here. Why do you think she wouldn't close out the year with a win in this race?
Well, let me just say first off, I mean, her class showed. I thought Darth Vader. I was rooting for Darth Vader too, but I thought she was going to go by her and win that race by at least a head. And Torpedo Anna really dug in gamely. And to her credit, at least I'm going to give her credit for this. In her last three wins, the Apple Blossom, the Florida Lee, and the Personal Ensign, on the Brisnet speed rating scale, she's gone 94, 98, 100. So her numbers are improving. They're not as high as they were last year. Those numbers are still a little bit underwhelming for the Breeders' Cup Distaff. But if there's an older mare that's going to beat her, I think it's the best option out there is Cavallari. She's coming back for Baffert in the Zenyatta Stakes this fall, next month in September. And like Vance referenced, we got Nitrogen in that 3-year-old group. We also got Scottish Lassie, who's coming off a big win at 1.125 miles, and we'll see if she can reproduce that effort from the Coaching Club American Oaks. Or maybe another 3-year-old filly could emerge as well. Because I think that the Florida Lee and then that personal incident on Saturday just showed that Torpedo Anna is going to show up at Del Mar with a class advantage over any of the older fillies and mares that are on the East Coast or Midwest. But the fact that her numbers are low, Ashley, that's why I'm a little bit hesitant. And those are favorites I like to play against in the Breeders' Cup. I'm going to be big on the numbers. Playing against favorites that I think are vulnerable based on figs, and we'll see this fall.
She was still a heavy favorite in the Breeders' Cup Distaff last year, but I know some people did want to try to take a stand against her in that race. I do feel like it's a better chance to beat her this year. She has been, I mean, she is 4 for 5 in 2025, and she had that bad showing in the La Troyenne. But aside from that, she has won by multiple lengths, aside from the personal ensign, that nose win over Darth Vader. But you're talking about numbers. If we're going off of the Brisnet speed figures, she got a triple digit speed figure for the first time this season at a 100, but she had a 107 twice last year in that Breeders' Cup Distaff and in the Traverse when she was barely beaten by Fierceness. So it does seem like she is a little bit
She
less
ran a
dominant.
101 last summer too, winning
Right,
like
in the
some grade
Acorn, yeah.
one. Yeah, so her numbers were big last year.
Do we think that there's a chance that Good Cheer could show up in the Breeders' Cup Distaff, or is that out of the picture?
Certainly going to get more pace. I thought that the one thing about these Philly like Good Cheer, she's lacked her customary late kick. So I mean, it's hard to feel confident with her, but she could get the right dynamics if some speed shows up. Because Bob Baffert also has a couple other fillies potentially pointing for the Distaff, and they have speed. They have early speed.
Right. I was trying to think who I would play if I'm trying to play against Thorpedo Anna. And of course, we already mentioned Nitrogen and then Cavalieri if she were to show up as well. But Seismic Beauty,
Yeah,
if she's
Cosmic
in the
Beauty is out
picture,
there.
she goes to the front. That could create a hot pace for someone like Good Cheer. But it does seem like a better chance to play against Thorpedo Anna than it was last year in the Breeders' Cup Distaff. Well, let's move over now to talking about one of those Bob Baffert horses, Hope Road, who won the Ballerina this past weekend and will be pointed to the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint. Got a ticket to the Filly and Mare Sprint actually by winning that race. And then Sweet Azteca remained unbeaten on the season by winning the Rancho Bernardo at Del Mar. So should both appear in the Filly and Mare Sprint. Who do you believe will finish better? Let's see. Vance, do you want to take this one first again?
Well, I think the horse to beat still in the Filly and Mare Sprint is Copian at her best. And of these two, Sweet Azteca actually has a win over Copian in her season debut in the Great Lady M at Los Alamitos. Granted, that was Los Alamitos. It's a totally different ballgame at Del Mar. And Copian lost a shoe in the Great Lady M too, so that kind of helped benefit Sweet Azteca as well. But keep in mind that Sweet Azteca didn't even make it to the Breeders' Cup starting gate last year after compiling a pretty good season up to the Chillingworth in September at Santa Anita. And so she was kept out of there. She switched barns from Michael McCarthy to Richard Baltus, but now Baltus has really zoned in on the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint this year. She's going to come in still very, very fresh. She's a very fast filly. And I think obviously with a previous win in the Beholder Mile, she can carry that speed up to a mile herself. So when it comes to the Filly and Mare Sprint at Del Mar, I think Sweet Azteca is probably the one they're going to have to run down. I still think Copian overall is the better filly, but to me, Sweet Azteca, I think, can outrun Hope Road, even though Hope Road does have a pretty much a perfect record at Del Mar since joining the Baffert barn. I'd give the edge head-to-head proposition between these two fillies. I'd give it to Sweet Azteca.
James, why would you take Hope Road over Sweet Azteca as far as a better finish?
Well, I loved Hope Road's ballerina, and I just think that this is a filly that's eligible to really come on and hit her, carry her best form forward this fall. I will say, as far as Sweet Azteca, Vance referenced that Beholder Mile at a mile. That race is in March. And I think it was difficult for Sweet Azteca to hold her form all year long. It's just difficult for these sprinters sometimes to, just the last month after month at their month at top form. She's been handled much more judiciously with, like Vance referenced, the Breeders' Cup in mind. So she only has 2 starts this year and has looked great in both of them. But Hope Road, I thought a race in the Derby City Distaff was an eye-opening performance where Copian was sort of all out to beat her. I thought she came back too close and sort of bounced, certainly regressed in her next start at Churchill. But this race was just brilliant, I thought. And I really liked how, she allowed Scylla to get out there early on and then just really went hard at her and pushed a really fast pace and got a huge number for this effort, a 103. In fact, in 3 of her last 4 starts, she's earned triple-digit Brisnet speed ratings, Hope Road, and I just think she's set for a big effort at 7 furlongs this fall.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were surprised to see that Scylla went to the front and was able to get the lead over Hope Road. And then the fact that Hope Road was able to stalk and then get away to win by 2 lengths. That wasn't really typically how she runs her races. She normally, in the past, especially at Del Mar, went straight to the front. I do think head to head, as far as who gets the lead, Sweet Azteca would get the lead over Hope Road, but I'm seeing more versatility with Hope Road in the last, I would say in the last season. I see a little bit more versatility. Now, our record at 7 furlongs is a little bit of concern who would win outright more likely. Hope Road is 1 for 5 at 7 furlongs, but she did keep running into Copian when she finished second and actually finished fourth in the La Brea to Copian as well. But I think I would give the edge to Hope Road head to head with Sweet Azteca in that race, but I don't know that I would say I believe either one of them is going to win it. I think you're right. Vance Copian is the most likely winner of that race. And I think if we see ways and means, that's going to push the pace a little bit more. That concerns me with Sweet Azteca's run style. If she doesn't get the early lead, can she win that race? But ultimately, I think the answer is Copian wins the race, but Hope Road I would take as well to finish a little bit better than Sweet Azteca. We'll find out, though. We'll find out if we see both of these fillies even in the race, fillies and mares. All right, well, to close out our final points, I will let James start this one. What caught your eye from the weekend?
All right, I'll start off with some 2-year-old maiden report. I got a maiden at all 3 tracks. We'll start at Saratoga with Big Dom. This is a son of Mackenzie out of Half AP, who is a sister to champion 2-year-old filly, half bridled. And Big Dom, I thought, was awesome here. He's the 5-horse for Tom Amos, winning at first asking. Race came back fast, 109 and 2/5, a 96 speed rating. And the thing about this colt, like I said, I mean, his dams by pulpit, his second dam is deputy minister, his third dam at the half by Seeking the Gold. I mean, just what a feather in his cap to be able to win a salty maiden special weight at first asking like this, because you would think all of his best races are going to be in the future at longer distances. At least I hope they are for Big Dom. Then I'm going to move to Del Mar. We're going to go to Intrepido, excuse me. This is a colt that has continued to flatter the winner of his debut. He ran 4th first time out to Brandt. Now, Brandt won that race. The 3rd place finisher from that race, Balboa, came back and won real impressively for Bob Baffert. And then the 4th place finisher was Intrepido, and he came back and won really smartly for Jeff Mullins. Stretched out to a 2-turn mile at Del Mar on Saturday, one going away by 3 1/4 lengths. Another one, I mean, you just look at this female family, Pleasantly Perfect, Breeders' Cup Classic winner, Smart Strike. Lots of stamina influences, at least in his female bloodlines. Intrepido, good-looking winner at Del Mar. And then at Ellis Park on their closing weekend on Saturday, Paving, a filly by Gunrunner for Tom Amos, made her career debut, and really we'll see her here. She settled really pretty settled willingly off the pace after breaking from a tricky rail post. Drop back to about 5th early, and then makes a powerful run off of the turn and to catch a stubborn, I thought, pace setter. One going away by Open Lens, got an 86 number. She had worked a bullet at Churchill Downs in advance of this race by Gunrunner, and also her female family also loaded with stamina influences. So saw some winners this weekend: Big Dom, Intrepido, and Paving, all could be 2-year-olds with the future.
And now for the international report from Vance.
Yeah, the domestic star Sovereignty and the Travers. Internationally, it was Ombudsman at York last Wednesday in the Juddmonte International, where he easily reversed form with Delacroix. From the Eclipse Stakes in July, Ombudsman had the benefit of a pace setter from the Godolphin stable who really did his job, and the pace setter went off at nearly over 100 to 1 over in Britain. Nearly stole the show. He was up 20 lengths, I think, or close to it, but Ombudsman did run him down and beat Delacroix very decisively. This is the best 1.25 mile horse in Europe right at this moment for trainer John Gosden and his son Thady. After the race, Gosden talked about future plans with Ombudsman. He's going to keep an eye on the 1.25 mile races that are still left in Europe, the Irish Champion next month, and then possibly either the Champion Stakes at Ascot or the Arc de Triomphe at Longshaw over 1.5 miles. But Gosden was very adamant in saying that yes, his participation in any of these races are going to be dependent on the ground. This is a horse that wants good to firm ground, not soft ground like you often get in the autumn in France and England. So he did leave the door cracked a little bit open for bringing this horse over for the Breeders' Cup Turf, because he's sure to get a firm turf course at Del Mar. He said that this horse could easily get 1.5 miles on a flat American course like Del Mar. So we'll have to keep an eye on the weather in Ireland and England and France over the next 6 to 8 weeks. But the possibility exists that maybe Ombudsman will come over for the Breeders' Cup Turf, and that would be a great coup, because I think he would go off favored in the Breeders' Cup Turf and possibly be as low as even money. This is a really good quality horse.
Yeah, that would really be a gain if we did get some. I mean, let it rain for those champion stakes and those races, because like Vance said, he's a 4-year-old. Last year he just got going late in his 3-year-old season, and this year he's just proven to be such a top class performer. 6 wins at 2 seconds from 8 starts, and really coming into his own now, it seems like.
Now we'll close it out. Going back to Saratoga, talking about some of those grade 1 sprints, starting with Bookham Dano, who's been a fan favorite over here at Twinspires, and he continues to prove himself in the sprint division, arguably solidified himself atop the male sprint division. But connections are hesitant to commit to what would be his biggest test, the Breeders' Cup. He's a New Jersey bred. He scored his second grade 1 win this past weekend in the Forgo, which you're watching right here. And he earned a spot with that win in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, but clearly best as a sprinter. And with this one in the Forgo, the 4-year-old gelding, he swept not all 3, but 3 graded sprints at Saratoga over the summer. The grade 3 True North in June and the grade 2 Vanderbilt in July are the others. And overall, he's 4 for 5 this season. His only loss was that neck 4th to Mindframe in the Churchill Downs Stakes, which was arguably the most exciting finish on that Kentucky Derby card this year. And then he's also had Paco Lopez aboard for all 5 of his starts this year. So some of that success can be attributed to Paco as well. But Bookham Dano has, I would say, this past weekend showed that he really belongs at the top of that sprint division. And at the same time, Derek Ryan, his trainer, said that he wasn't set against the Breeders' Cup, but originally the beginning of the year, the plan was to point him toward the Vosburg or the Phoenix Stakes at Keeneland. The Vosburg at Aqueduct were the original plans for his final start of the season. But now maybe the Breeders' Cup happens, but for sure the Breeders' Cup at Keeneland in 2026 is a goal that Derek Ryan talked about. Not running in the Breeders' Cup, though, I do wonder, is that going to affect voting for the Eclipse Award? I still think he has the resume to win it, but not showing in the Breeders' Cup would be interesting. I don't know who could take it from him right now with what I'm looking at rankings-wise, but maybe someone can sneak
That's
in
the
there.
real question. Who could take it from him by winning the Breeders' Cup sprint?
Raging Torrent, has retired, and
Yep.
I guess, yeah, I feel should go to him, but it's interesting that we might not see him in the Breeders' Cup. And as far as that other 7 furlong grade 1 sprint for the males, we had Patch Adams win his 3rd straight. And in spite of the fact that he hasn't won it 2 turns, Brad Cox has talked about he prefers the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. He did say that in the past, those 2 times that Patch Adams tried 2 turns, I was at 1.16 miles, and he said it was probably lack of maturity and not breaking well that affected his performances in those 2 starts, the Southwest and the Tampa Bay Derby. But he expects better if he were to try the 2-turn Dirt Mile at the Breeders' Cup. So interesting to see where we're going to finally see Patch Adams and Bookham Dano end of year, considering, for one, the variable of Patch Adams not winning at 2 turns yet, and the fact that I feel Bookham Dano has proven himself as a top sprinter, but potentially won't be in that Breeders' Cup sprint.
I thought Patch Adams, Brad Cox's decision might have been a little bit predicated on, fact, I want to go run against Bookham Dano at Del Mar. You take Bookham Dano out of the Breeders' Cup sprint, and that race becomes more appealing to me for a horse like Patch Adams. I'm
Yeah.
not going to be in line betting on Patch Adams trying to win it for 2 turns for the first time
Right.
at Del Mar. He's going to train up to either race. And the thing with Bookham Dano is that he does have one more race scheduled, either the Perryville at Keeneland or the Vosburg at Aqueduct. We'll see what happens in that race and the other final round of Breeders' Cup Sprint preps. But if he is has nothing to gain by going to it, then their decision makes sense. We've seen a horse, Princess of Silmar, whose owners ran her in the Distaff in a sporting sense, but she may have just been champion 3-year-old by not going, and by going and losing, it cost her. So it depends on whether they have something to lose or not, in my eyes, whether they go west. They might have nothing to gain by doing so why do it?
Yeah, and on that note, he is a gelding.
Yeah.
And they want to make as much money as they can with him. I know they want to go back to the Middle East next winter and run in those big sprints over there, and eventually point for the Breeders' Cup Sprint at Keeneland, as you mentioned. And I was a bit surprised too, looking at the sprints at Saratoga on Saturday. Bookham Dano ran the slowest of the 3 races. I mean, Patch Adams ran faster. Hope Road even ran faster, going 7 furlongs than Bookham Dano. So I wouldn't be so bullish on Bookham Dano going to a Breeders' Cup Sprint after running the slowest of the 3 races at Saratoga this past weekend.
I thought Scotland ran well, considering it was a jump back up in class.
He
Just wanted
likes
to consider it for a
Saratoga.
longer
He
shot.
likes that track, though, Ashley. He's got to
Yeah.
prove it elsewhere.
Quick question. Mystic Dan or Patch Adams in the dirt mile?
Oh, well, I mean, I'll give Mystic Dan is a 2-turn horse, and Patch
Yeah.
Adams isn't. But there's going to be other options to bet besides Mystic Dan.
I'm just saying head to head, who would we can debate that another day.
All right.
But yeah, I think that's all the time we have today for the Racing Roundtable. We will be back next week to, of course, recap more stakes action from this weekend. So we will see you then.